Donald Trump is running the promises made, promises immediately broken administration. But largely, MAGA doesn't care. They don't care that prices aren't lower, they don't care that the stock market is tanking, and they don't care that Donald Trump, who promised that he'd have a peace deal in the war in Ukraine before he was inaugurated, hasn't even come close. But the promise they do care about is the promise of the Epstein Files, something that Donald Trump said that he would release, something that he said he would declassify, and of course, that hasn't happened. And MAGA's upset, so much so that Karoline Leavitt was confronted about it, and her reaction wasn't great. We're going to cover it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into Karoline Leavitt being confronted by a MAGA influencer, I first want a little context on why they're so upset.
Donald Trump, and take it with a grain of salt, has promised full transparency when it comes to most of the big conspiracy theories of the past 60 years, something he campaigned on in the lead up to the election. The issue led to an absolutely Hall of Fame interview clip.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
Yep, Epstein. Sure about that? Maybe not Epstein. I wonder why Donald Trump wouldn't want the Epstein files to be made public. I mean, here he is in 1992 dancing and leering at women with his buddy Jeffrey Epstein at Mar-a-Lago. In 2002, Donald Trump said Jeffrey Epstein is, and I quote him here, a terrific guy. It is even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. I wonder why Donald Trump wouldn't want the Epstein files to be made public. Thing is, many members of Trump's base do. The Republican House Oversight Committee sent multiple letters to Attorney General Pam Bondi demanding the Epstein files be released. Bondi then went on an apology tour to Fox News, promising the documents would be released imminently. Today, the White House made a big show of handing a bunch of conservative influencers binders labeled the Epstein Files, Phase 1. But the whole stunt was a bust.
What's interesting is we're all waiting for bombshells, we're all waiting for juicy stuff, and that's not what's in this binder. That's not what's in this binder at all.
It is the biggest disappointment I think that you'll find. I encourage you to do your own homework on this. It's mostly procedural jargon, Glenn, heavily redacted.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, the Florida Republican leading this charge, said of the binders, all caps, "This is not what we or the American people asked for, and a complete disappointment."
So MAGA is not happy. Now, Donald Trump has broken lots of promises, and considering how much Republicans talked about eggs on the campaign trail, it's a little weird they're not focused on prices skyrocketing and the economy collapsing, but are instead focused on the Epstein files. But you know what? You pick whatever you want to be mad about. Now, this question that was asked of Karoline Leavitt wasn't asked in the traditional briefing room, right? It wasn't asked by one of the regular members of the media. It was asked in her new media and creator briefing room, which is some of the craziest collection of weirdos and MAGA influencers you'll ever see. And just to show you that, before we get to the Epstein question, I want to start with one of the strangest ones we've seen so far.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the honor to be able to ask a question and provide some transparency for the American people. Speaking of, I wanted to reference the election integrity. A lot of people in America are questioning if there's any possibility that we could see further investigations for anyone that could have violated our election integrity rights. And more importantly, so is there any possibility for names such as Barack Hussein Obama, Hillary Rodham Clinton to ever just possibly get investigated for any of these, questions from the American people, for any of the wrongdoings they might have done?
Well, it's refreshing to actually hear a question on election integrity because the legacy media would never ask such a question. They're so out of touch with where the American people are on this issue. And
first of all, what an insane thing to ask. If Donald Trump, the guy who exclusively on the campaign trail whined that he was being politically persecuted, is going after his political enemies, just shows the cognitive dissonance of MAGA. And secondly, the fact that this guy can't even pronounce the names correctly of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama just goes to show the type of characters that they're bringing into this press room. That's not what it is. These people are not press. They have no credentials. They have no credibility. They're just people who repeat the talking points of MAGA, except when they actually give Karoline a little pushback, which we saw right here.
My question is about the Epstein Files. And a couple months ago, the DOJ released what they called Phase 1 of the Epstein Files, and they announced that a lot of those files, the remaining files, probably the bulk of the files, are actually in the New York field office. They requested that they be returned the day after, and some legacy media reports show that not only were those files returned to the DOJ, but that hundreds of FBI agents are going through them day after day and getting them ready for public release. Do you have any updates from the DOJ or the FBI on when those files are expected to be released, and also when we might start seeing some arrests of the client list?
Sure. I can assure you that the Attorney General and her team at the Department of Justice are working on this diligently. For a specific timeline, I'd have to check in with them, and we can certainly do that for you, Rogan, in the effort of transparency. But I will tell you, the Attorney General is a bulldog. She is someone you want on your team, and when she wants to get something done, she gets it done. I've seen her do it in various instances already in her time as Attorney General, and when she makes a promise, she keeps it. So I think I don't have a specific timeline on you for that, but I do know that they're working on it over there.
They're working on it? Well, how long did it take them to work on the JFK files? You released those. That didn't take too long. You released those right away. So what could they possibly be working on? Maybe Donald Trump's name is appearing so much that it's taken them a long time to cross it out, but what could they possibly be working on? And what does working mean? Working on what exactly, Karoline? You can't tell us? You don't want to? Does it have anything to do with the many photos of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together? Donald Trump publicly talking about their friendship, Epstein doing the same thing as well. It's this issue that drives me crazy more than most of the lies from MAGA, because they're still talking about it. If it had been a point that they brought up long ago and some images resurfaced and so they shut up, that would be different. But Marjorie Taylor Greene daily is talking about Jeffrey Epstein. We see Republicans all the time say, we demand the truth. We need it. Why is Barack Obama covering it up? And it's like, Barack Obama never met him. Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were close friends. And he talked about him and what was happening while he was in the White House the first time. So what are you even saying? I can't even wrap my mind around the cognitive dissonance that has to exist with these people for them to try to frame this somehow as a Democrat issue rather than one with Donald Trump's actual BFF. But MAGA is not focused on anything important ever, obviously, and John Ossoff was calling that out right here.
What's the constituency for this? Who out there in the American public is sitting at home demanding that we shut down cancer research and Alzheimer's research? We're going to pay for this not just in lives and children's lives right now, but we're going to pay for this for a century. Irreversible damage has already been done, and it's an outrage. And I hope that this hearing demonstrates that there's bipartisan rejection of these policies here in the United States Senate, and I hope that we'll follow up this hearing with real action. And Ms. Stenson, I've got a 3.5-year-old little girl at home, and thank God that your little girl is alive. For every parent can understand when you hold your precious, innocent, kind child and you fear the most intense fear that something could happen to them, to think that American parents with children who have cancer now don't know whether they can enroll that child in a trial because maybe there's a way to save that life. It's devastating. So thank you for being here and bringing your sweet little girl. Thank you for sharing your testimony with us. I have here a statement for the record from Emory University in Georgia that includes the following statements. Quote, this research has contributed to significant advancements in treating diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, infectious diseases, and cardiovascular conditions. Federal support for biomedical research is essential. Cuts or stagnation in research funding jeopardize these efforts and could have far-reaching consequences for both patients and communities. Even a short interruption of research funding could set back scientific progress for decades. We urge Congress to continue prioritizing bipartisan investment in biomedical research. And Madam Chair, I'd like to ask consent to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
Mrs. Stenson, my understanding is that Charlie's participation in clinical trials saved your daughter's life. Is that right?
Yes.
And because of what you've experienced and what you've been through in your advocacy, I would imagine that you've come into contact with other families similarly situated whose children are only alive thanks to clinical trials.
Yes.
I'd like to ask, at the end of the day, sir, forgive me, the multi-decade potential impact of this war on medical research. Talk about the long run, please, sir.
I can tell you that in the next few months, we're going to determine, we're sitting at a crossroads. We are at this moment of extreme opportunity, and you've heard it from all of the scientists at this table about what's already been accomplished and what could be accomplished. Or there's another path, and that path is this path of the leaked pass-back budget. That budget, I hope it's wrong, but it says a 44% cut to NIH funding. And we can talk about administrative costs, we can talk about everything else. That level of funding means that we aren't in a race anymore. It means we aren't in a race anymore. And what that means is there may be cures for disease. There may be investment made in China and elsewhere that leads to some things happening that we would want. We're not going to be able to set the standards. We're not going to understand access. We're not going to have the ability to even catch up because the benefits will accrue to some other place. But what it really means for patients is that we can't drive the priorities. We can't say pediatric cancer. We can't say Alzheimer's. We can't say Parkinson's. We will have lost that race. And these early career scientists that are really in moments of panic right now, they are going to be determinative of whether or not we have a generation of scientists to replace the ones that we have today. This is not just a 5-year problem. It's a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year problem that it becomes not a virtuous cycle, but the opposite. It becomes a cycle on the way to a downward slope that we can't pull out of.
Karoline Leavitt is holding idiotic press briefings with people who have no credibility, and Republicans, on the other hand, in Congress are making sure that, we can't fund research into infectious diseases? We can't make sure that folks aren't going bankrupt just because they get sick? What is the focus of this administration besides serving Donald Trump and putting on these ridiculous public displays? They're spending more money now on a military parade for Donald Trump's birthday than they are funding pediatric cancer research. What is efficient about that? Can we get the Doge guys to look into the military parade? We come to a point where you don't even really know what to say. Again, it goes back to the Epstein thing. To ask a question of Karoline Leavitt like it is some Democrat who is preventing this from happening, when it's really Republicans in every conceivable form, protecting Donald Trump, I can't even. It drives me crazy. These people are insane. We got to call them out. We're doing so on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.